Welcome to the January 22nd, 2021 Sandag Audit Committee meeting. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you could put do we have a flag or?
I've got one.
I'll go with, yeah, and Stuart has one too. So if you just follow me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everybody. Before I jump into the meeting, I'd like to ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum. Francesca?
Yes, Vice Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, let's start with approval of the minutes.
I'll move to approve.
A second.
All right, let's vote.
Thank you very much. For the City of El Cajon, Vice Chair Wells.
Yes.
Thank you. Paul Dostart.
Yes.
Thank you. Stuart Halpern.
Yes.
Thank you. And Robert Monson.
Yes.
Thank you. And that does pass unanimously.
All right, Francesca, do we have any public comments?
No, Vice Chair, I don't see any hands raised.
All right, committee members, do you have any comments?
No.
No.
If I could, I just have one thing relating to the agenda, if this is an appropriate time to bring that up.
Sure.
I think it was our October 23rd meeting, Amberlyn might correct me, where we had a motion that was passed relating to the evaluation of Mary, the IPA. And as part of that, it said that in 2021, we should reestablish the subcommittee to reconstitute and work with Mary to establish her individual performance goals for this year that are specified in the employment agreement that's supposed to happen. So whether we do that today or not, it just strikes me as something that we probably want to do earlier in the year rather than later. So I just want to throw that out there from an agenda perspective for today or a subsequent meeting.
I think since it's not agendized, we probably have to put it on the agenda of the future meeting. Isn't that right, Amberlyn?
That's correct, Mayor Wells. We can work with you to agendize that for an upcoming meeting since you are the acting chair right now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, then. Hassan, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I am. Sorry
Welcome.
we're having so many technical issues here at Sandag with the internet, but we'll resolve them. Thank you.
You look good right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Walls. Good morning to all of you. Mr. Mansoon, Mr. Dostart, Mary, Mr. Halpern. Good to be with you. Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since the New Year. This is, I hope this will be a great year for all of us. Let me start my Executive Director report by just talking to you about the status of the Audit Action Plan. First of all, I want to start by thanking Mary Kay and her team for helping us move this forward. And they'll continue to help us to make sure we meet the intent of the Audit Action Plan. So last November, at the recommendation of this committee, the Board of Directors approved Management Action Plan for implementing the recommendation from the compensation audit. That was conducted by Mary Kay and her staff. The plan describes new policies, procedures, and control that will make Sandag a stronger agency. Staff have been working on several with the independent officer, the independent performance auditor, on the initial action item and are meeting on a regular basis to make sure that we're moving on those expeditiously as possible. As various actions are completed, we obviously will, after running it by Mary Kay and her staff, we'll bring it to you. But I will assure you today that we will implement the plan that you and the Board of Directors, action plan that you and the Board of Directors adopted in its entirety. Let me just run by. Today, we had our first board meeting of the new full board. Unfortunately, we have to carry a few items forward because we didn't have time. If that's an indication, that's a good indication that we're having a great public policy debate. One of the issues we debated is the equity statement. And let me make what I told the board. We have to be absolutely unambiguous about our quest of undoing the sins of the past and moving forward a transportation system that serves everybody in every community, in every corner of San Diego region. That's a commitment of the staff. The board did not approve the equity statement. They had a desire. They created a subcommittee, a desire for one more week of tweaking words. And the main issue was we, in the equity, the final equity statement, we talked about marginalized groups, and some board members wanted to list those out, and we did actually list some of them out in the first draft, but then people come say, what about me? What about me? So we decided to just do that. And I expect the same thing to happen in the moving forward the same way. The couple of things that I would like to update you on and are important is last month, we actually were the only agency in California to receive $9.3 million of US DOT grant for the next operating system in our 5 big moves. Antoinette and her team and our grant staff did an amazing job. Julie Wiley and her team. To get this means more than the $9.3 million, but this is a testament to how cutting edge our 5 big moves are and how this agency is doing cutting edge things to move us forward. This $9.3 million is going to set us on a path to future mobility that deploy technology and that build the reimagined future transportation system in San Diego County. Just to give you an idea, nationwide, there were $49.6 million available. We got 9.3. And I can tell you that, I need to tell you that every time that we have the most amazing staff I ever worked with. So beating my old agency and others in getting this money is really something. This will be the first of its kind project. We'll provide real-time traveler information, smart intersection, on-demand ride services, trip planning tools. So before a San Diegan lose their house, they'll have the ability to choose their mode, to pay for it, and just get out of their house and choose the mode. So again, thanks to my staff and our partners. I'm happy also to report to you, because you like things that deals with money and you want to make sure that we save the public money, that last Tuesday, we closed on a refinancing of a TIFIA loan for Midcoast. And that refinancing saved the region $123 million. We went from an interest rate of 2.75 to an interest rate of 1.75. I honestly, first of all, we are the first in the country to do this kind of refinancing. And Andre Dujan and Dan Latif and the team, just, you know, we celebrated here at the Vision Lab where I am right now with apple ciders, but this would require a bigger celebration. But $123 million that we didn't have. Why is that significant? Because as reported to you, I think in the last time we met, we have about $250 million of cash flow issue. $250 million, yes, real cash flow issue right now. And we promised the board that we will do everything possible to minimize that. This $123 million will go toward that in terms of our ability to minimize. There's other things we're doing. At the end of the day, though, we're gonna still have about $110 million if we're successful in everything we're gonna do of cash flow problem. What does that mean? That means some projects have to stop, some project might not start, and some project might not be completed. We have not started that process. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Paul.
You jump magnitudes there. we have a $250,000 current cash flow issue, but
225 million, sir, $225 million.
Okay, that's good, because all of a sudden I heard 250,000. I thought, okay, well, that's serious, but that can be dealt with. And then I heard 110 million, and I thought, wait a minute, was something just happened here? Thank you very much. I must have misheard.
Okay, so the 225 is the cash flow that we have. Now we're trying to chip at it like refinancing of TIFIA, reduce it down. If we're successful in everything we wanted to do, we will end up with $110 million of cash flow issue. But having this refinancing really make it much easier. I also want to update you. It's good news. Our crew are putting the finishing touches on the 4th phase of the Del Mar Bluff stabilization. I also reported to you that our region received $177 million from the California Transportation Commission in December. And again, we're the envy of the state. We received for 2 projects, the Del Mar Bluff and Otay Mesa 2. That funding that identified last month is enough to do Bluff 5 and 6 and stabilize the bluff temporarily for good until we move it inland and we build the tunnel for it. So from now on, I'm happy to say that we made it a mission. I made it a mission that we're going to get funding, identify funding to do this. We done it. We have the money identified. We're going to stabilize it temporarily, but never again I will recommend to the board that they spend money on short-term solution. It is time for this region to say, okay, we have a problem. We can fight nature, but we can't win all with nature. Therefore, we need to do it. So happy to report that we identified the money. I am being honored to do a panel next Friday to talk to the new President Biden administration about transportation. I'm on a panel with great colleagues, including the Secretary of Transportation in California. I think one of the reasons they chose us to be on the panel because Sandag is on the cutting edge. Sandag is leading the state and the nation in putting forth a multimodal approach for every San Diegans, whether you drive, you take the bus, you bike, etc. But we're doing it uniquely. It is a data-driven approach. A data-driven approach that requires a lot of data that the federal government actually can and hopefully will make it available. So I'm going to be telling them on the panel, get this billions of data points that you have stored somewhere in a basement in a computer, get it out so regions like ours could use it. And also going to talk to them about future mobility and the ability for us. 3 of our priorities are national priorities. Otay Mesa 2 border crossings with Mexico. The Del Mar Bluff sits on the 2nd busiest corridor after the Northeast. And the 3rd priority, which is the NAVWAR project, cybersecurity, national significance. These priorities I'm going to present to them as something could be an example for the rest of the nation. And I'll share with you more information as this moves forward. I just want to conclude by saying this, and you're probably going to hear this discussion at the board next time. We hold ourselves accountable to the communities we serve. We acknowledge we have much to learn and much to change, and we firmly uphold equity and inclusion for every person in the San Diego region. So this equity statement that's continued to be discussed by the subcommittee and going to go back to the board is not just statement, is not just a word. It's going to be followed by action. It's going to change the way we fund things. It's going to get rid of the sins of the past. And as a region, all of us, the 3.3 million of San Diegans, I'm sure is going to be pleased that we're taking that approach. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Hassan. I appreciate that. Any questions for Director Akartha? All right, looks like you did a good job of explaining it. Nobody's got any questions.
There is Mr. Harber.
Sorry, Stuart, I didn't see. The picture's so little. Hey, Stuart,
Yeah.
please.
I've got one, but I also want to ask, after the marathon board meeting, I don't necessarily expect you're going to stick around for our whole discussion of Mary's proposed budget, but I also have two questions relating to that. So if I don't know if I could ask those now or,
Sure, please.
okay. But just on what the information you just mentioned to us, just for clarity, and I don't know if maybe Andre needs to jump in. When you reference the $250 million budget shortfall and the 100-something million savings from the TIFIA refinance, are those over the same time periods, or is that?
Good question. The cash flow issue we have is between now and 2025, which is 100, just to be exact. After we do all the measure, will be about 110. The saving of the TIFIA loan is over the life of the loan, which is when, Andre?
Got it. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's right.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. So just very quickly, I know this really relates to a different agenda topic, but on the budget, my understanding is that the budget Mary's proposed does not include any compensation adjustments for her staff. And we all know that these are tough financial times. I just wanted, I guess maybe it's more of a statement, express hope that if, especially in light of Mary's satisfactory performance evaluation by the outside consultant last year, that if there are going to be any COLA or other adjustments for the organization, that Mary and her team would be considered as part of that.
So let me just say a couple of words. First of all, I'm aware of this. I think I spoke to you, Mr. Harburn. I am going to bring back we did not give raises to any of our employees, and Mary didn't for hers either because we didn't budget for it. But we are going to bring it back because now we got our revenues actually went up as opposed to down. We budgeted conservatively. We thought that because of COVID, we might see less sales tax, less TDA. The opposite is true. We actually seen a jump in both. I will budget for raises for the independent performance auditor and my staff in this budget that's coming to the board. So I welcome any recommendation from this committee to the board.
Great. And then somewhat related to that, Mary's budget request includes what she labels as an unfunded $92,400. And I was curious, to the extent that her upcoming audit results in recoveries from third parties, which I suspect it's likely to do any such recoveries, can they be credited to the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor? So in effect, it doesn't look like she's got this, red 92,000 when the fact is her efforts may recover hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, Mary and I are talking. I know of her need for a position after losing the intern, and Mary knows that there is like another 43 requests, but I think her request is a priority, and I'm going to make sure in the budget we find the money to fund her one staff position. And I talked to Mary about this. So before the budget is final, hopefully we'll be able to make it whole, Mr. Stewart.
Okay, and maybe later on when we get into the details, somebody else can address that issue of what happens.
I just want to address your comment about sticking for your committee. Your committee is my favorite if you don't tell other people. Okay, that and like Paul is smiling. He knows that I wouldn't. It's a secret, but also
there's a rumor you may have told every committee the same.
Yeah, but I also want you to know I'm getting paid to work pretty much 24/7 with Mary, so we can work anytime you want us to.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. Anybody else? All right. I want to ask about public comments. Francesca, do we have any public comments?
No, Vice Chair Wells, I don't see any hands from the public.
Okay,
Hassan, thank you for your time and for the report.
Thank you, sir.
We will now move on to an update from the Office of the Independent Auditor. Mary, are you ready to go?
Yes, I am. Good
That's
afternoon.
all yours.
Mayor Wells, Vice Chair Wells, and members of the Audit Committee. It's a new year, and I'm hoping a better year for us all. At least that's my hope at this point. I wanted to just share a few updates. glad to share that we are finished with the risk assessment. And that report has been issued to the executive director and his staff. We also prepared for their support and assistance should they want to continue to use it, a heat map, heat matrix for them. And we kind of inserted some examples of what output was on the risk assessment, just so they'd have something to follow. Now they could add to that, they could reduce it, delete it. And I had that conversation with Hassan. We'll have more conversations as we move through it. I had a discussion with them yesterday about some additional areas and to determine if they wanted to look into that and determine if there were any risk that was above their tolerance level. As I said, we'll have more discussions with Hassan on that matter as we move forward, but it's done and closed, and I'm happy to see that moved along. Also, we've closed up the audit, and that's been quarterly controlled, reviewed, and closed out. We're going to follow the corrective action plan as Hassan shared. We'll look at that probably every 6 months, check in with them just to see how they're doing. And then annually, we'll do some testing around it to see the improvements. And in fact, what they say they did, they actually did, which is a typical audit process that we do on corrective action plans. This month, I will also be moving into a new discussion on risk. We have a lot of new board members, so I'll be reaching out to individual board members as well as audit committee members to have our fun risk assessment discussion. And that will be used along with, once I determine my audit resources for the year, will be used to do a revised audit plan. That audit plan will look at probably what is already prioritized, but probably be reduced because of the resources. We obviously can't have the resources that we initially were recognized in needing because of the funding situation. So we have started the contracts audit. That is, of course, as you know, one of the high priority audits, and it's a large audit. The audit, as I shared, we're going to break it down into 3 parts, and that would be issuing then 3 separate reports. I think that's more digestible for everybody, and will be more user friendly for board members who can't really take in that much information. So we're going to separate those into, as I said, an internal control review report, which is always where you start off in an audit, is testing internal controls and looking at the controls. And that will be helpful for Hassan as well. We'll move from there into compliance, and we're looking at compliance around federal and state grants, other regulations that they're required to follow, and general compliance around their own policies. And then we'll issue a report on that. And then the last leg would be around expenditures and supporting documentation and actual payments and negotiations and contracts back and forth to amendments, all of those around contractors, a third-party review. And then that will be a final report as sort of that third-party review. I think this will be better on large audits like this. I think we're going to try to always work it this way. I just think it's, as I said, more digestible for everybody to handle, and it helps scatter out and balance the audit a little bit more. So with that, I'll be reaching out, as I said, in February to meet with those board members and the audit committee members, and that's it at this point.
Mary, thanks very much. Let's first see if there's any public comment. Francesca?
Sorry about that. No, I don't see any hands from the public.
Great. Now, audit committee members, would you like to weigh in? Okay. Who's that?
Mr. Mansoon.
Bob.
Yeah. Just a quick,
quick clarification for me. Whereabouts are you at on that contract audit? Have you just started it? Or are you through the first phase? Where are
We
you
are
at?
actually just starting, Bob. We have completed our audit program. We've looked at our threats and weaknesses and started the audit planning memorandum, which is linked to the program. And we are probably going to be reaching out next week to send the engagement letter and set an entrance conference.
Okay. You'll be doing that for each one of the sections?
No, I think we'll have one entrance conference and let them know how we're going to lay it out to save time. We'll have one big program, but it will be broken into 3 areas. We will do a planning memorandum for the entire audit, but then we'll have exit conferences and discussions and drafts for each report and treat it separately in that manner.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? Okay, then. Now on to item 5, the proposed fiscal year 2022 independent performance audit budget. Mary, I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you again. In accordance with AB 805 and Board Policy 39, Section 6.3, I am required as the independent performance auditor to bring to the Audit Committee a proposed Office of Independent Auditor budget for each fiscal year. Today, I'm bringing that forward. The proposed fiscal year 2022 budget provides the necessary resources to perform the activities of the office. At the Audit Committee meeting February of 2020, last year, almost a year from now, we brought to you a detailed analysis to support an additional 5 positions. And you recognize the need for that, and we were able to support that sufficiently. And we also brought it to the board the following month, and they too recognized the need for those resources and still did not give us the funding because a mandate was pending at that time. Unfortunately, the mandate, at no surprise, failed, and they chose to not fund the mandate or recognize it as a mandate. So that is why I bring back at least one of those positions and the need for one of those positions. I understand the situation and the pandemic on top of the already situation that was there will prevent me from having a fully staffed, fully resourced office, unfortunately. And that's fine, because what I'll have to do is just adjust the audit plan based on the resources that I'm requesting. Hassan and I have had several conversations, and he is supportive of giving me one additional permanent staff position that I can at least capture the interns. As you know, I've lost one of my interns, and we gave a great deal of training to him. And so he was taken away from us quickly with all that great training that he got. And we don't want that to happen to the other one that we've put a lot of work and effort into training. So Hassan is working with me, and I appreciate that with him, to bring that deficient amount of 94, I think it's approximately, to get that permanent position. And then that would help staff my office and still give me the 2 interns to support and develop, and have them probably leave as well. But such is life in government. So with that, that will support some of the additional audits that we would be able to do, and support Hassan and any extra projects that he might want us to look at, and the board as well. So with that, as I shared with you, I'm unfunded about 92,400. And I am seeking that. And as I said, Hassan will support me with this.
I will, and I want to say that I have a list of like $15 million. This is number 1, so we're gonna start checking the box. Don't worry.
All right, ask for 14 million.
I know.
That's right, that's right.
Now that I have him on public line, maybe
There
I
you
should
go.
negotiate a bit. Huh?
You said 92,000, so that's the way it's gonna be.
And 92,000 in the grand scheme of things looks
know.
like pennies, right? So so just one little auditor position is all I'm asking for at this time.
All I can tell you is that she trained Ran very well, that he was marketable immediately, left us. So we're gonna have to ease in training the other one that good, you know?
We shouldn't ease up on training, but we should fund that position,
We
and
will.
it's it could even be fine to go for 2 if they had extra money. I mean,
Well,
do this.
as I told Mary, Paul, I think we're gonna fund this position. And frankly, once we clear on the cash flow issues, we'll talk. I mean, you know, I think I told you this before. I am totally committed to having an independent auditor's office that fully functional, because I believe it's the best interest of SCAG and SANDAG and the public to do that.
Yeah, okay, good. And if I don't know what the committee members can do, the three independents, but certainly if there's a need to go lobby the board or something, you know, I'll do my share. We need to, I mean, this office needs to be properly funded.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate all your support, all of you. And I know that, you know, including Hassan, that everyone knows that an audit is both a blessing and a curse, right? Nobody likes auditors when we come, but in the end, everyone knows that if you're audited and you find deficiencies and bring improvements, that in itself brings about a big savings. And like Stuart had said earlier, those savings we will track. You know, when we start to do our audits and we have dollar findings, especially third-party dollar findings, you know, we will track that along with our audit and share that along to the board, the savings and the amount of money that we brought back to SANDAG as a result of having stronger controls, less deficiencies and better, you know, processes. And so that's our hope. And I know that Hassan's on board with that as well.
And actually, just on that point, I'm curious, Mary, if in your experience, and I realize this is, you know, I'm asking for sort of gross generalization, but is there any way, based on your experience, to say that when you're doing third-party contract audits, if there's like a gross dollar amount of contracts that you're auditing, that you're, you know, typically going to have a recovery rate of some percentage, you know, greater than 0, and if that would be like 2%, 10%, I don't know, because if there actually is in the normal, you know, normal course of the world, that could give some, you know, helpful perspective on this whole issue of the 94 or even more, because if you were going to be auditing, you know, billions of dollars worth of contracts, and I'm not sure what the number would be, there's like an expected recovery, recognizing it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know, there is actually. So some audit shops do it like you were explaining, and I'll give you an example for YOLO and even some state agencies at Energy. When I was there, our office got 1% of all of our recoveries. That was on top of the already functioning audit budget that we had. City of San Francisco, city and county, because they're combined, of San Francisco actually on the forefront gets 1% of every county and city department's budget for auditing. So, you know, they learned a long time ago that auditing actually does save a lot of money and makes things more efficient and effective. So they have a well-staffed city and county auditors office, and they bring in a lot of money because they do have the resources to take the time and to really, you know, dig into areas that can bring about a lot of savings. And that's both in process savings and in third-party contract savings. And when you're looking at construction contracts and you're auditing construction or capital improvement contracts, those are big. And so
I'm sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
You're always gonna find a savings there. You're always gonna bring a return.
A different way of approaching this, in other words, if we had a bounty system where we actually fed money to the office that found it, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable. That's like giving a traffic cop a percentage of the tickets he writes. Something's wrong with that picture. But what I will say, the IRS has done studies on this, and they have concluded that and they tell this to Congress whenever they go back asking for additional funding for their audit, what they call the examination function. And their studies show that for every dollar you pay to fund the examination division, you raise $8 of additional taxes.
Right.
And so that kind of showing, motivates Congress to say, well, this isn't a cost center. This is a revenue center, and it's taxes that are owed. It's not like we're extorting people. These are people who are not paying taxes they do owe. That's a very compelling showing to say that if we're a little short of money, we fund audit, contract audit, and suddenly we can predictably say they'll raise, $3 for every $1 or whatever it is. That kind of thing is a compelling thing if that data exists.
That does, and like I said, it's either on the forefront where, like I said, city and county of San Francisco just takes 1% off of every budget off the top and funds it, and then the other does it on the back end. And the reason they say it's okay to do it on the back end, because as a CPA, Paul, you cannot based on your findings set an amount of reimbursement for yourself. That's against professional auditing standards because of exactly what you said, right? Then there's this agenda out there that may be a hidden agenda and not quite as independent as it should be. However, with the government, because we are not for profit and we are not being paid a certain amount of percentage as an office based on our findings, then the 1% recovery that went back to us was appropriate.
So Mary, just to give some perspective to this, if you have even a rough number in mind, could you share with us what would be the gross dollar amount of third-party contracts that might be audited as part of your plan? Do you have even a rough guesstimate?
I can probably give you a better, because I don't want to give you a guesstimate, and at that point, that's what this would be. I would probably say that I can give you that next time, because by then we'll be able to pull a full sample of the contracts and see what the totality of that dollar amount is, and then also the size, because we're going to be looking at both dollar and risk as far as inherently, right? What's the inherent risk around the contract versus the dollar amount, because you have to look at both. So next time I can give you that response.
Okay.
I can tell you that.
I don't doubt that Jim runs a very tight ship. I don't know if he's still on here, but to Paul's point, it wouldn't surprise me that once you start getting involved in auditing third parties with very large dollar amounts, that the 92,000 you're asking for may not look like a very big number at all. So,
right.
Hopefully others on the board, and I would share Paul's comment that if Hassan or anybody, Bill, if the board needs to hear additional voices on why this is a smart investment to make, I'd be happy to show up at a meeting too, because my experience also is that this type of audit function has a positive return on investment.
No, I don't think they will. I'm sure Mayor Wells can report to the board. We're gonna find the 92,000. That's really in the top of the list for me.
I don't see the board really
no
having much trouble with any of this.
Right.
I just hope that Mary doesn't find that we owe the contractors some money either, Paul.
And you know what, Hassan, really, to tell you the truth, the majority of the contractors, they can be so big that they might be very unaware of it themselves, right?
Exactly. No, exactly right. Exactly right.
So
I actually, and when I work in LA, we actually had found that in few projects, not a lot, few projects that they actually didn't do it right, and we owe them more money than they submitted. But in most of the cases, we find the other way.
I will share with you when I was at one of the largest grant federally and state funded grant agencies for the state. I actually was one of the ones, and it's been in the paper before, that found a huge energy related company that was a complete shell company. And it was actually about 10 very well-paid engineers that set up a shell company. And it was my actual visit to the actual product that they claimed that they were doing research and development on that exposed that the whole company was a shell company. And that was millions and millions of dollars that we had handed over to them. So.
Okay. Any more questions or discussion from board members or?
Quick question,
committee
Mary.
members?
Just one question,
Bob.
Mayor Wells. And again, this is just my own clarification. So you're requesting the new position, the 92,400. You're still retaining the 2 intern positions,
Yes.
correct? Okay, all right. All right.
Yeah, that
That's it.
includes that 92.4 deficit is just to get that one full-time permanent
Gotcha.
body on. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. That's my only question.
Okay, great. So today I'm asking that the audit committee review the proposed Office of the Independent Auditor for fiscal year 2022 budget and recommend its approval by the Board of Directors.
Great. First off, let's see if there's any public comment. Francesca?
No, Vice Chair, we don't have any public comments.
All right, before we get to a motion, any more discussion amongst the committee members? All right, then I would like to make a motion that we recommend the approval of the fiscal year 2022 budget to the Board of Directors.
Second.
Yes.
Moved in second. You call for a vote.
Thank you very much. For the City of El Cajon, Vice Chair Wells.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Paul Dostart,
Yes.
Stuart Halpern,
Yes.
and Robert Monson.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and that passes unanimously.
Mary, thanks for the great report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. One thing I wanted to mention really quick is if you're interested on continuing, it's my understanding, and Amber Lynn might want to jump in here, that you have to reapply.
Yeah, Mayor Wells already sent an email, said he's interested. So Francesca will follow with Mayor Wells what he needs to do.
And that is the same with the public members as well.
Yes.
Perfect.
So who do we contact, Mary? if we
Francesca.
wanna-
Francesca. And
Francesca?
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Our clerk of the board, and she's on this call if you have questions for her.
okay.
Perfect.
If-
Thank you, everybody.
Would you, I missed what that significance of that last item was.
So if you want to continue serving as a public member or as an elected, you need to reapply for the new, for the position. And so if you're interested, contact Francesca and she will guide you to what you need to do. And then we'll take it to the board.
And remember, we are the personal pet committee of the executive director, so this is the place to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're my favorite for sure.
No, that's right. We're his favorite.
But don't tell anybody, so don't tell the other committee.
We won't.
Okay, then. Francesca, let me just ask you one more time if there's any more public comments from the public.
No, Vice Chair, I don't see any hands.
Also, could you send your email out to all the members so that they could easily access you?
Absolutely. I'll send you all an email after the meeting so you can just easily reply if you're interested in reapplying for the committee.
That would make it easy.
Thank you.
All right. Board members, I'll give you one last chance to say anything you want to say before we move towards adjournment. I guess we said it all. All right, our next audit committee meeting has been scheduled for February 26th, 2021 on Friday at 12:30 p.m. That concludes our meeting. Thanks, everyone. We are adjourned.
Thank you.